Hi, and welcome to another amazing opportunity to spotlight a leader who's doing cool things in the world of leadership and business and helping leaders grow and thrive. And that is my very special guest today, Bec Sands. Hello, Bec.
Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for having me on. Very excited to be here with you today.
It's awesome to have you come and play, shall we say. Now,
Yeah.
Bec is someone who is, I guess, has a title that's a little different, and you may or may not have heard of a title like this before. But Bec is actually a visibility mentor, and she works a lot with women, but all sorts of leaders to really look at how they can become more visible in a confident way that feels, I guess, true to them and who they are, and really step into a higher grade position or looking for other opportunities or to build their business with that kind of purpose and brand, finding their voice, and really just being clear about how can I use my visibility to grow my business or my career strategically? Now, Bec comes from a PR background like I did originally in my career. So it's nice to always riff with people who have kind of that similar background.
Yeah,
And
you
she's
know,
worked,
you know.
yeah, she's worked with big brands and executives and those sorts of things. But today she's really a coach and that kind of mentor that's helping people who want to be more of a corporate leader or want to grow their visibility so that they can have a bigger impact and make a difference in the world. So, Bec, would love you to share a bit more, a little bit of your backstory and just how you came to be where you are, because I always think it's best to hear it in people's own words.
Yeah, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I think you explained it better than I could. So I started my career in PR agency coming out of university, did like a media degree at Macquarie, then started an agency, worked on a whole bunch of different brands. Hang on, sorry, it's just gone to my face. I'm just going to put you back on. There
All
we go.
good.
And so I worked in agency for about 5 years and then realized I sort of wanted a big career change. I was like, this isn't it forever. What do I want to do? I went in-house into the corporate world and then kind of worked my way up into leadership positions there. So I was in corporate for about 12 years. But on the side of that, I sort of always knew that there was something more that I wanted to do. And so I started studying life coaching about probably 7 years into my career. So I still kind of did that on the side of my corporate career. While I was, in kind of, I was the head of PR for a global property company in Australia and New Zealand, and the coaching actually helped me take my career from strength to strength. So it was like a really beautiful kind of synergy there. But I still knew that I wanted more. I was coaching so many women in corporate to help them to get promoted and that kind of thing. And then finally stepped into my business full time in 2019, just before COVID hit. Great timing, Beck. Because I needed another challenge, and yeah, have sort of grown it from there over the last 6 years, and it has changed and evolved, and bringing together all the PR and comms experience that I've had with the coaching in this like kind of beautiful synergy, which I really love now. And I've got a platform called Confidently Visible, which that's basically, the result of that kind of 10+ years
Mm.
of work that I've been doing in the background. Yeah, so that's kind of generally the story. And now I just love to support people to become more visible and move through fear and resistance to put their work out into the world and to put their themselves out into the world. And I think, that's something that I was really challenged with is putting myself out there and being visible as well, both in my career and business.
Absolutely. And wow, what a time to start a business, right? Talk about put yourself in the biggest challenging position possible.
Yeah.
And yet, I think could it have been a little bit of a good opportunity too? Because the more after COVID, everyone had to move online and had to find ways to be seen and to network and grow their visibility when some of the traditional in person ways and all the conferences and all of those sorts of things kind of went by the wayside. And I
Mm.
can totally relate. I remember when I first left corporate and started my own career, my own business. And I'd been used to standing with a big brand logo behind me. And it
Yeah.
was really easy to go in and share opportunities and talk to businesses about things that they could be doing and how I could work with them when I had a giant, state or national logo behind me.
Yeah.
But as soon as it was standing up and putting my own name forward, it was like mumble, mumble. And
Yeah.
it felt like I was being too pushy or too showy. And it felt like there was this really fine line behind I want to be able to build my career and my business. How do I
Mm.
show up and say, hey, here I am and what I can do for you? But how do I not sound sucky and like I'm
Yeah.
completely over myself?
Yeah, and this is like, I think this is kind of a cultural, societal thing where, it's like that tall poppy syndrome where people are like, oh, you're standing out a bit, like she's a bit up herself, that kind of mentality. And I think we're all kind of taught to be the good girls and to stay, just keep following, towing the line, just keep going, doing what you're doing. Don't stand out too much. Don't big note yourself, that kind of thing. And I think in business, you definitely have to get over that. You need to be able to find your voice. And really, the only way you can do that is by just putting yourself out there one step at a time and just getting a little bit out of your comfort zone one step at a time. And also just surrounding yourself with expanders, like those people that are doing really big things and cool things that inspire you. When I was in corporate and I was thinking about starting my own business, it was terrifying. And I just, was listening to podcasts on the way to work every day. I was reading like, every single self development book that I could get my hands on and business book that I could get my hands on. I was taking courses, I was learning, I was trying to surround myself with people that were in the space that I wanted to go into because everyone around me was like, still in that kind of, yeah, I
Mm,
don't like my job that much. Like, I'm just going to, suck it up and put up with it and just putting one foot in front of the other.
yeah.
And I was like, no, but I want to do bigger things, but I need to see what's possible. And I think those kind of expanders really supported me there.
I love the term expanders and I like that you've really talked about it being it could be people on a podcast or in a book. It may not necessarily be people in our environment. And I know a lot of our listeners, viewers, and clients are people who are within larger organizations. And so
Mm.
starting to want to build their career, not necessarily their own business, but in a way, their career inside a business. And so what advice do you have for anyone who's maybe wanting to climb the corporate ladder and be a bit more visible, but are within an organization inside it? Do you have any guidance for them?
Absolutely. So that's what I did before I started my own business. So it was all about getting into those leadership positions. It was about building my career in quite a competitive industry of marketing, PR and marketing, as you know, that, there's always a lot of competition there within
Absolutely.
teams. And when even, I mean, even I think you do need to be perceived as more of a leader before you can get promoted into leadership positions. And so in order to do that, you do need to become more visible even within the company. And so I started, I was terrified of this, by the way. Like, this isn't something that came natural to me. When I was in corporate, I was like, okay, I do need to be more visible. And so I just started with little things. So I would, I'd, given I was in PR and marketing and social media, I was like, okay, I'm going to do some LinkedIn presentations, around the company and support some people. And even, I just started with like 3 or 4 people in the room. And I was like, how can I support you to, grow your LinkedIn? And I did a little presentation on, and this is way back in the day when like LinkedIn was very first starting. So no
Yeah.
one was on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
it was just people were just starting to get on there. And, and I just developed confidence in that way, just doing, sharing my expertise in small situations where I could support people. And
Mm,
then I just started growing from there. So then I would start doing, as I kind of grew in my career, I started doing national tours and I would present to the entire office, around the country. And then I was doing media training sessions and then, sort of built from there. And then I was started to get asked to speak at conferences. So I spoke at like Mumbrella 360 and
right.
like I think it was like the Women's Leadership Conference in Sydney. And so, all things that terrified me at the time, but it was like, and still, every new level still scares the hell out of me. It's I think this doesn't go away. It's just more that you realize that, you can deal with anything that comes your way, and that you've got the tools and skills and knowledge that you can, speak confidently no matter what the
Mm.
situation is going to be. So, it's just really practice and getting out there and just putting yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, getting comfortable there, because you will get comfortable when you start to do these things. You'll get more and more comfortable. It does get so much easier.
Mm.
And then just growing from there. And before you know it, you'll be speaking on stages and, being perceived as your industry
Touring
leader.
the
Yeah,
country.
touring the country.
I love that. And I
Exactly.
love that how you started was thinking about how can I be of service, as in get the
Yes.
three people in the room and go, how can I help you improve your LinkedIn profile? So for people listening, maybe think about what's that little thing that I could start with that's relevant to my background and my industry and where I'm at. Could it be that I might get to present one paper at a board or executive meeting? Could it
Yeah.
be that there's a staff meeting or something coming up and I can speak, to something small in that and just start to build that muscle. What
Because I
about when
think,
it comes, yeah,
oh,
go.
sorry, Adria. I was just going to say, just to
Yeah.
elaborate on that, I think a lot of people have the misconception that when you're being visible, that it's all about you and that you're just self-promoting. Of course, like when you have a business, there is a little bit of that to be done, but most of it is about being of service. And so I think when you can flip that and go, okay, really, how can I support people? That and people really, really appreciate that. Like when you can get to the crux of like, what is it that you're trying to achieve and how can I help you get there through my skills, and develop kind of presentations or whatever it might be, whatever
Mm,
content it's going to be, that will support your visibility, but it's primarily the objective is really to support them.
absolutely. And so I was curious about, do you recommend to people to have a bit of a strategy or a goal to do it? Do they need to know where they want to go, or is it just like, just try some stuff out?
No, I do think a strategy is good. Like,
Hmm.
if you're just starting out, I mean, sure, just try a few things, that's fine. But I think it's really important to think about what's your objective. So if you are in a career, is your objective, it might be to grow your career, to be promoted, to, be positioned as a leader in front of your stakeholders, that kind of thing. And so, if that is your objective, then how can you kind of work your way back from there? So, who are your stakeholders? How can you get in front of them? What is the type
Mm.
of content that you can support them with? How would that best be presented? Is that like even when I was in corporate and I was in PR, I did, a weekly kind of newsletter that would showcase people around the country and people that have been profiled in the media, as well as like my team highlights. So what
Hmm.
my team had done, that week. And that was, just one little thing that people I think really appreciated, that also by default was able to position me as a leader in that space. And so, yeah, if you're just kind of coming from that, like, what am I wanting to achieve and what's the best kind of modality to get that out there?
Absolutely. And I think asking for feedback along the way, how did that land, and really being specific about that, like thinking and having that strategy in place and saying I'd like some feedback on how I presented and the level that I pitched that information at. But also, as you're saying, that be of service and thinking about others. I have seen some people grow their career in an incredible way inside organizations by highlighting and showcasing others,
Mm.
by giving shout outs, by promoting someone else's article on LinkedIn, by sharing someone else's content, by going to an industry event and actually giving a bit of a raving review about a speaker or other people. And so I've seen some people really grow their presence and their leadership, not through beating their own drum, but through beating others and being
Yeah.
an encourager and a supporter.
Oh, I've always had that in my mind that I'm like, because I'm building a personal brand, I will always do everything I can to support other people as well.
Mm,
I mean, not just because I'm building a personal brand, but like, I will always just want to support others as well. And so I do try and, promote like other people's work and have people have guests on the podcast and like, comment and share and like other people's work, and just kind of be engage in that kind of positive way in order
mm,
to just promote more good, because I think there's enough kind of negativity out there.
absolutely. And one of the things that keeps coming up a lot of lately, and I actually just went to a book launch about it, and that is that imposter syndrome.
Mm,
So, quite often, when we're looking to build our career and we're still a rung or two down from maybe where that goal is, we can feel like an imposter and go, gosh, who am I to speak up in that meeting? I can still remember, in my late 20s, not wanting to speak at an executive and thinking, oh, I feel like I'm new and I'm still the new recruit. And then I
mm,
was like, hang on a minute. I've been out of uni like 6 or 7 years. I know my stuff. I've managed people. But
mm,
that initial feeling when I was in with people who were far more senior and experienced than me was to kind of bite my tongue and feel
mhm.
like a bit of I shouldn't really be here at the table. So, do you have any advice for people when it's often they might have some good mentors and people around them who are supporting, but it's their own mindset going, I'm not good enough?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like everyone must have that.
Oh,
Apparently, not everyone has imposter syndrome because I'm reading Alison Shamir's book as well at the
yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
which I love. And not everyone has it, which I'm
Hmm.
surprised about because, like, I feel like I definitely have had it, particularly, yeah, in corporate when I was going into boardrooms with mainly men.
Hmm.
And, trying to be heard. But then I think at the end of the day, you've got the expertise. And I think like that's where it's self-talk. I think when I started this journey when I was in my career, I just made the decision. I was like, I am the best in my field at what I do.
Hmm.
I'm the best in my field at what I do. And it doesn't necessarily matter whether that was true or not. It's because I had that mindset, every action that I took was to be the best. So
Hmm.
I would go above and beyond, like no matter what it was, every action was from that place of being, aspiring to be the best.
Awesome.
And so I think it's really that self-talk. So if you can, if because we all have that negative voice that says, I have it to this day, like every day, so, I'm writing a book. I've just written a book and
Mm.
I'm going through the publishing process and I'm like, oh God, what, hopefully it's any good,
Yes. Will
it doesn't
anyone
matter
want to
what you
read it?
will anyone want to read it? Like, and I think we just need to remind ourselves it's a daily practice. I am really good at what I do, and when those thoughts of negativity come up, or when those thoughts come up that say like no one wants to read your stuff, or no one wants to
Mm.
hear from you in the boardroom, whatever it might be, then you just need to reframe that and say, my opinion is valued,
Hmm.
and I support other people with my content, or when I contribute uh, in this way, this it will be valued, and hopefully that is true in the boardroom. I know it's not always,
Mm.
but I think if you can just consistently kind of start to reframe that, and if you are in a situation where you're not being valued, then I would consider leaving that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to that whole, is there a values alignment? Is this the organization I want to grow in? Or
Hmm.
if you're transitioning, and I've got a number of clients right now who are changing careers or looking for new
Mm.
opportunities, it's what organizations feel like they've got some alignment with my values, and then maybe going and having a chat to some people. I think one of the greatest ways to grow our profile is going and having a coffee with someone and asking them about their career and how did they get to where they are. Quite often, people will share all sorts of nuggets of gold and are more than happy to share a bit of their story rather than just those reach outs that are like, can I pick your brain? Which just sounds like,
Yes.
can I buy some of your time for nothing or for the cost of a $6 coffee?
Yeah.
And for most leaders and executives, that doesn't sound very appealing. But when we admire someone and we're like, that's actually something I aspire to, asking them, could I actually spend some time with you? I'd love to hear about how you overcame your challenges and got to where you are. People usually genuinely love to share their story, don't they?
Oh, 100%. I really love the way you frame that because I used to have people say to me, literally in corporate, like, can I just meet up with you and pick your brain? And I was like, no, like, yes, but can we not frame it in that way? Like, it was just
Mm.
a little bit like, oh gosh, okay. Whereas if they had have come up and said, oh, I'd love to hear more about your story and how you got to where you did in your career, and if you'd have any advice for me, I would have been
Hmm.
like, absolutely. Like,
Totally.
yeah, that's feels so much nicer. Like, it just feels much more reciprocal, right? Than
And
just
respectful.
and
I always say,
respectful.
imagine if
Yeah.
your cousin or friend is a hairdresser, you don't say to them, "Can we catch up for a coffee and bring your scissors and your hair color? Because 'Cause I'd love to have a quick trim for free while you're there." And but you kinda go for often for executives and people, when people say, "I wanna pick your brain," it is like
Yeah.
literally saying, "Can I have that free haircut with my coffee?" So be
100%.
respectful of people that you're getting that input from.
Yes, but, yeah, it is a great thing to do to, yeah, learn from other people, get mentors, just meet and also just networking if you're looking to
Mm.
change careers, like, meet up with other people in your industry. That's how you generally will land those roles. And that, like, it's kind of all connections, and referrals,
Okay.
a lot of
So
it.
let's dive into that because I think
Okay.
networking is really interesting. And,
Yeah.
it's been around for eons. And we know that being in person and meeting with each other is a good thing and that humans are, social and all of those sorts of things. But for many people, networking is like icky, creepy.
Yeah.
Or for introverts, it's like, oh my God, that's going to use my entire week's energy to go to one event.
Mhm.
Um, what advice do you have for people who are like, I do want to network, but I also don't want to go to the opening of an envelope and be known as the person that's at everything? How
Mhm.
would you go about if someone had a strategy for building their presence, their profile, and their career as a leader? What kind of advice would you give to them around the networking piece?
Yeah. So, look, I get it. Like, I'm an extrovert, but I also really value my own time. And like, I find it really exhausting, particularly when I was in corporate, to go to like the morning and the evening events. Like, it was just like, it makes your day really long. It means you probably can't get your workout in. Like, it throws you out. So, I get it. Like, it needs to be high value. And so, what I would do is I would build out a little strategy, but make it really quite achievable. So, the strategy might be very, very simple. So, it's like, okay, like get promoted or land a new role. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go to 3 networking events a quarter. I'm going to do one coffee catch up a week, like on a Friday morning, maybe.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what I mean, you could pitch yourself to PR and media and speaking in events. It depends what level you're at, but there's a bit of that as well. Or
Mhm.
doing one presentation around the company, or one email newsletter a week to your team or to the company, or speak up in a team meeting once a month, or whatever it might look like for you.
Yeah.
But really just having those targets that are realistic and not thinking that you've got to be going out to a different networking event every single week.
Mm.
And also the one-on-one coffees are really, really good as well if you can, get those with people around your industry as well. But yeah, the networking events are great, but I would always come to it with a bit of a goal in mind. And that might be like, I'm just going to meet 2 people today,
Mhm.
and have a chat with 2 people. And that feels like it's achievable, because if you've got an event and there's like 150 people there, it's overwhelming because you're like, how can I get around that room? But if you're
Mm.
like, I'm just going to have a chat with 2 people, and you might even then have a chat with 5 when you're there. But I feel like if you can set a little target for yourself and then also come at it again with that kind of being of service mentality. So
Mm.
if you can start to think about like when you open that conversation, like find out more about that person. How can you serve it? Like, how can you be of support to them? Could you connect them with someone in their network that, might be of value for them? Is there
Mm.
something that you can, provide? Like, there's always something. If they're, they might even be like, oh, I've been meaning to connect with, such and such person from this company. And you could say, oh, yeah, I actually know them. I'd love to connect you. I'll shoot an email after this, that kind of thing, so that you
Mm.
can sort of come from that place of not just like, I want to meet you and like, here's my business card. And,
Yeah.
it's
Bye.
not like, yeah.
Yeah, so
See you
go for
later.
depth,
Yeah.
not shallow and not numbers, but go for depth. I think
Yeah.
one of the things I've found really useful with networking, and now I live more remotely, so I don't want to go to lots of things because it requires a lot of travel. It's got to be kind of working with my schedule. But what I
Mm.
found is I tend to take someone else. So I'll take a
Yes.
client or someone who is looking to build their career, or is looking for a new opportunity. And so that way it's of service. And also, I delight in introducing this person to other people and going, instead of it being about me. And I think then the spotlight's not on you where you feel icky. It's
No.
like,
Well,
let me
we
introduce
met
you to Beck. Yes,
we met at a networking event.
absolutely. There you go.
Literally. Like I can't remember who introduced you. Was it
I was, we met,
Amanda?
Amanda introduced
Yeah.
us at a Gen Collective event. Yeah,
Yeah. And it was, and then we were like, oh, you're awesome. You're awesome. Let's
you're
catch
my
up
peep.
for lunch. Yeah. Yeah. And so if you can kind of continue that relationship as well, it doesn't need to be lunch, but you could follow up with a LinkedIn, or you could say, let's have a coffee or a virtual coffee or
Yeah.
something like that to sort of build on that relationship. And then I think just generally building relationships with people is how you build a career or a business, is,
Mm.
really like caring about people and listening to them, and, remembering a little bit about them, and
Being
just genuinely
interested.
being interested, be
Yeah.
curious, and like just generally have that kind of giving mentality. It's sort of, yeah, it's not just what you're getting. That just comes naturally by, you know, putting yourself out there more, and you will by default sort of start to grow your career and your presence and so on. But it's, if you're just kind of thinking about, yeah, what can I give?
Mm. What about for people who are looking to build their career? And I've had a few clients at the moment who are all in career transition. So we've been looking at their resumes and
Mm,
also bigger, longer term career goals. So some of the clients I'm working with want to be on paid board positions, say in a decade's
mm-hmm,
time. And so it's
mm-hmm,
thinking about what can shape my career and move me forward in the industry or towards some board positions. And we've really been looking at then the language in their resume and those sorts of things, and making sure it's positioning them in their future self position, if that makes
mm.
sense, rather than speaking in language about what I'm doing right now. Is that something you recommend as well? Or what are some tips for people if they're rewriting that resume and where they're thinking about where they want to go next?
Yeah, I think positioning themselves in the place that they want to go next is key, and like highlighting that experience. I think with resumes, like if you're looking for a job or if you're looking to, that kind of thing, it's just really about making it stand out, because,
Mm,
having been in a position where I've gone through like hundreds of CVs and things like that, it's like if there's typos, goes in the bin. If there's like, if it's not clear on the front page, goes in the bit, like you don't get to the second page. So it's really just about like I don't think it matters what the layout is specifically. I think people get really hung up on that kind of thing, but it's really just about, yeah, like having, maybe there's the five key career points, and if you're positioning yourself as a leader, then it's like led teams into growth of, that kind of thing. So
mm,
five, might be just 5 points about me and my career, on the front page, so that then if people resonate with that, then they will keep reading, but
mm.
it's not just about your experience. It's really about having that stand out, and just the relevance to whatever it is that you're going for and what you're looking for. So yeah, positioning yourself as that leader in that way.
So, in terms of business in general, career,
Mm.
what's been your one or two biggest lessons that you were like, whoa, I learned a lot through that? What have been your biggest lessons?
Biggest lessons. Oh gosh. I feel like, one of the lessons is that like no one knows what they're doing. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think, yeah, learning that, I was like, oh, okay, there's not a secret that everyone knows that I don't. I'm not behind. Like everyone's kind of just working it out as they go along. And I think
Yes,
I think
totally.
that was, yeah, that was probably the number one lesson. And then I was like, oh, that gives me permission to try different things as well and not feel like I'm behind as much. Because I think no matter where you're at, like you can always feel like, oh, I should be there, because you compare yourself to others and that kind of thing.
And other people look like they've got it all figured out. I have to say,
Yeah.
my second highest rating TikTok video that I ever did. My top one is actually of a big wallaby that I came across on a walk, but my
Yeah.
second highest is a video I did about my journey into executive boardroom levels and how I realized that no one had it figured out. And then I
Yeah.
was like, they're all just making it up. None
Yeah.
of them have it all sorted.
Yeah.
It's
And I think
totally.
further to that, probably the second biggest lesson is that, the people that become the most successful are just the best at problem solving. Because
Mm,
if you think about everything as a problem to solve, And that's not a bad thing. Like, you don't
Mhm.
ever want no problems, because you're never
Right.
going to have no problems. You're always going to have problems. It's just you want to improve the quality of them. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, so I think just looking at everything as getting to the next best quality set of problems, like there's no kind of place in the future where there's going to be this perfect oasis of like, oh, I've arrived. This is
Yeah.
it. It's like you're always going to be growing and developing. And so, yeah, if you can just kind of think about that in that way, I feel like, yeah, can
Totally.
support.
And it's interesting. It reminds me of the fact that, now I coach so many CEOs and business owners, and I, coach CEOs in and executives in government and also private sector, and people who have multi-million, billion-dollar companies who people think, oh, they've got it all figured out.
Mm.
But behind closed doors, most of them are asking me, do you think I'm going okay? Is
Yeah.
this normal? Or they're saying, I'm feeling close to burnout. What am I going to do to keep balancing? Quite a lot of them say the higher I go, the more responsibilities that I've got. So I feel this pressure of I've now got 10,000 staff and I have to make sure
Yeah.
they all get fed and go home to their family. And so it might appear that the people above us are, you know, in more flow, but not always. And quite a
No.
lot of them, I've had, I'm really thinking about a senior leader at the moment with a company of about 2,000 staff. And we did some work on emotional intelligence. And in the next coaching session I had with him one on one, he was like, that EQ stuff, I've got that, don't I? I'm all right. I'm like, well, if you got to ask, but I still remember it because in the session, he was sitting back and being all confident, but deep down, he was going, oh, am I okay with that?
Yeah.
And what
And
I
just,
learned
yeah.
from that was he was really clever at just asking questions.
Yeah.
So instead of just being the person who had all the answers, he asked really good questions. Sorry,
Yeah.
go on.
No, I was just going to say, just on that confidence piece, like you mentioned, he was projecting confidence in
Hmm.
in the, yeah. And I feel like, this, my platform is confidently visible. It doesn't mean you always feel confident. It
Hmm.
just means like you've got the skills and the tools to be able to handle any situation
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
that comes your
Yeah.
way. And I think, yeah, and it doesn't mean like, and yeah, being a leader, or, or being at the top of your field, it doesn't mean that you're an expert in everything or that you have all the answers. It just means that you've gotten really good at figuring things out.
Mm. And today, people want to see leaders with some vulnerability. They want to know that you
Mm.
don't have it all perfect. They love it when a leader is able to go, hey, I mucked up. Let's unpack that. What could we do differently next time? And so it's not about perfection, is it really? It's about that, like you said, just being a good problem solver and having the right ethics and values to step forward.
And that allows other people to also then feel like they can make mistakes and try different things, which is essential in today's world. I mean, things are changing and evolving so rapidly that we all
Mm,
need to be trying new things and different things. So, it just gives like, it's sort of that leading by example. I think when
mm,
you can, try new things and say, let's work it out, like this didn't work in the way that we wanted, that's okay, here's what we're
mm.
going to do next, and that gives permission for other people to do that as well.
Absolutely. I've just been working with a large health company and they're really starting to move into dipping their toe into AI. And the executives there were all going, this is new to us. Like we've all dabbled in chat GPT, but the AI that they're looking at and the function it's going to bring to the customer service and the way that they actually run the company and some of the decision trees that they're putting into it, they were like, this is all new ground. So we're all kind
Mm.
of back at square one learning together. So I think it's important that you're experimenting and trying stuff and being real.
Yeah, 100%. Love it.
So I'd love to know a couple of last questions. Who's inspired you as a leader or in building your career? Have you had someone who's inspired you or been a great mentor and supporter for you?
I did, when I was in property, I did have a manager who was just lovely coming out of agency, and was just exactly what I needed after coming out of quite a tumultuous time in my career. And I think
Hmm.
just someone that, yeah, was really supportive and like had my back. And you can feel when your manager has your back, you just feel it. And I felt that. And so it was just a really nice few years there. Loved that. So yes, absolutely that. I think in business, I've always really looked up to business owners that have done like big things in the online space. So like Marie Forleo,
Mhm.
I did B School, you know, Denise Duffield Thomas, who lives in our region,
Yes.
Julie Parker, who runs the Beautiful You Coaching Academy that I studied at as well. Yeah, like there's some kind of people in that industry that I've really looked up
Hmm.
to as leaders in that sort of online business space. But yeah, certainly when I was in corporate, there were some people that were fantastic, and I had a few really great mentors that supported me as well.
Yeah, and that's so important to find people who are cheering you on. And I think part of the
Yeah,
visibility may not be a public visibility. Like, you don't need to be known by the world. You don't need to do TikTok
no,
dances. It's not about being known by everyone. It's being known by the key people, and that
yes,
the people who know you know your value and what you can bring. And certainly, I
yes,
know in my career, it wasn't about being known by the world. It was that key leaders, key CEOs, and people trusted me. And
yeah,
it's still that way in my own business today, not even in corporate, but in my own business. And I know that my referrals come privately. It's one
yeah,
CEO to another saying, "Hey, you should talk to AJ." And people will ring me and say, "I don't know why I'm ringing you, but so and so told me to."
that's
Um, and I
amazing.
don't really know what you do. And I'm like, I don't either. Shh, you know.
Yeah,
So it's that whole referral, and that's the way we work, don't we? As
yeah,
humans, we are connected. We're networkers. We want to refer good things. You know, you try a new product or you go to a new restaurant and you love it, you tell your friends. And
yeah.
so the same thing goes in our career. You do something great, you do some good work, people will tell others.
Yeah, it is. It's all relationships. Like coming, you know, full circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this
Mm,
episode, though, just yeah, developing those relationships. It's not about en masse necessarily. You
mm,
know, you don't need to, you know, you don't even probably need to speak on stage. It's yeah, just about building those relationships. And those people are then your ambassadors.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking of someone I know in Sydney who is an amazing networker, Oksana, and she's a Russian woman who built her business from scratch and had to learn English and everything when she migrated here.
Mm,
And she actually now just runs her own events, runs her own
mhm.
just a catch up lunch, and has like 5 or 6 friends come and they all bring someone. And so she's become the hub and someone who helps others network. And so she doesn't speak, she doesn't need to do any of that. She just has people introduce each other to each other, and looks for like minded people who would be interested in having lunch together. And so sometimes you can be the spark that helps others build their career as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about human connection
Mm.
at the end of the day.
So, I guess lastly, before we kind of wrap up, I'd love to know a bit more of a personal thing, but what are you most grateful for right now?
I think I'm grateful for a lot of things in my life at the moment.
Mm,
I'm just very in a really good place. I think it kind of off the back of quite a tumultuous few years for me, but you know, like having moved cities and growing a business and all sorts of things. But I think probably I'm most grateful. I mean, I'm very grateful for my business because I
mm,
really feel like my business supports me.
mm,
And I'm just grateful that I started it and that I sort of put that effort in. And I feel like now I'm sort of even just, I still feel like I'm at the beginning, 6 years in, like there's so much more to go.
mm.
And yeah, and I just feel really settled in it.
Awesome. And you can hear that, which is exciting. Um,
Yeah.
I'd love for you to just share. There might be someone listening going, "Ooh, I think I need to reach out and get some help with shaping my career and my profile and where I'm going."
Yeah.
How can people find you, Beck?
Yeah. Well, at my website, that's becsands.com. And then on socials, you know, Bec Sands on Instagram or on LinkedIn, you can find me Bec Sands. Yeah. And just, yeah, everything's there.
Lovely. And I would say, given that she's a visibility mentor, like and share this podcast wherever you find it or watch it,
Yeah.
because I'm sure Beck will also give you a shout out and share it widely as well. Thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing your time and energy with us today. It's been insightful and a good reminder for me too of just going back to the basics and being interested in people, looking for
Yeah.
those expanders. I loved that. Being of service, asking for feedback, and also having a bit of a career strategy or a plan for what do I want to be known for. Um, and
Yes.
lastly, it reminds me of I often have leaders go and say, go and ask all your team or other people around you and peers how they would describe you in 3 words and start
Mm.
just noticing, are they the things that I want to be known for? And
Mm.
if not, start looking at ways to shape that. So may you all go
Yes.
and shape your careers and futures in the ways that you want to so that you can enjoy the life you want to create.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, AJ, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.